In just 47 seconds, one of Hollywood's most respected actors completely dismantled a talk show host's credibility before storming off set in what insiders are calling the most explosive television moment of the year. What started as a simple conversation about Robert De Niro's latest film turned into an all-out verbal war that exposed Bill Maher's arrogance and left the audience absolutely stunned. Before we dive into this unbelievable confrontation, make sure you subscribe to this channel right now. We bring you daily videos exposing Hollywood's darkest scandals, the heated confrontations the mainstream media won't show you, and the truth behind what really happens when celebrities clash. Hit that subscribe button, because you won't want to miss what we have coming next. Last night's episode of Real Time was supposed to showcase De Niro discussing his upcoming movie and his thoughts on the current state of cinema. The legendary actor walked onto the stage to enthusiastic applause, wearing his signature casual style, a dark jacket over a simple shirt. Bill Maher greeted him with his usual smug grin, the kind that makes you feel like he thinks he's the smartest person in every room he enters. The audience was packed, everyone excited to hear from one of the greatest actors of all time. De Niro waved to the crowd as he sat down in the guest chair, settling in as the applause died down. Maher was doing his typical routine, shuffling papers on his desk, taking a sip of his drink, and preparing to launch into what he probably thought would be another easy interview, where he could show off how clever he is. They started off talking about De Niro's new film, a drama about a working-class family struggling in modern America. De Niro spoke passionately about why he chose the project, explaining how it reflected the real struggles that everyday people face. He talked about spending time with actual working families, learning about their lives, understanding their challenges. His voice carried genuine emotion as he described meeting a single mother, working 3 jobs just to keep her kids fed. "These are the stories that matter," De Niro said, leaning forward in his chair. "Real people, real problems. Not everyone lives in a bubble. These families, they're out there fighting every single day just to survive. And nobody's telling their stories. Nobody's showing what it's really like," he continued, talking about how the film didn't glamorize poverty or make it seem romantic. It showed the grinding reality of it, the exhaustion, the impossible choices people have to make between paying for medicine or paying for food. De Niro's passion was obvious. This wasn't just another project for him. This was something he genuinely cared about. Maher nodded along, but anyone watching could see that patronizing look in his eyes, the kind of look that says he's just waiting for his turn to talk, rather than actually listening. His fingers drummed on the desk. He glanced at the audience a couple times with that knowing smirk, like he was about to say something really clever. When De Niro finished making his point about the film's message, Maher couldn't help himself. "Well, that's very noble, Bob," Maher said with a dismissive little chuckle. "But let's be honest. Do you really think the average American wants to see another depressing movie about how hard their life is? They know it's hard. Maybe they want to escape for 2 hours. Maybe they want to see superheroes or action movies, something fun. You know?" The audience laughed politely, but there was uncertainty in it. Some people shifted uncomfortably in their seats. De Niro's expression shifted slightly. His jaw tightened. You could see his eyes narrow just a bit, that intense focus he's famous for. "It's not about being depressing, Bill," De Niro said, his voice measured but firm. "It's about being honest. When did honesty become something to avoid? When did telling the truth about people's lives become something we should shy away from?" "I'm just saying," Maher continued, waving his hand like he was swatting away De Niro's point. "Hollywood loves to lecture people about their problems while actors fly around in private jets. Don't you see the irony? You're worth millions, I'm worth millions, and we're sitting here talking about working-class struggle. It's a bit rich, don't you think?" The audience let out another uncomfortable laugh. De Niro didn't laugh. He stared at Maher with that intense look he's famous for in his movies, the one that makes villains reconsider their life choices, the one that cuts right through someone's bullshit. "I'm not lecturing anyone," De Niro said, his voice calm but firm. I'm using my platform to tell stories that need to be told. What's your excuse for having a platform, Bill? To make cheap jokes and talk down to people? The audience went quiet. You could feel the temperature in the room drop. A few people glanced at each other nervously. This wasn't the friendly banter they expected. Maher's smile faltered for just a second before he tried to recover with a laugh. Hey, come on now, Maher said, trying to play it off as friendly banter. I'm just having a conversation here. No need to get defensive. We're all friends here, right? I'm not defensive, De Niro shot back. I'm direct. There's a difference. Maybe you're not used to people calling you out on your bullshit. A few people in the audience gasped. Maher's face turned red. He sat up straighter in his chair, and you could see his ego had been bruised. Bill Maher doesn't like being challenged on his own show, especially not by someone with more credibility than him. His hand gripped his coffee mug tighter. My bullshit? Maher repeated, his voice rising slightly. I've been doing this show for years, asking tough questions, saying things other people are afraid to say. Maybe you just don't like being challenged. Maybe you're so used to everyone treating you like a legend that you can't handle someone having a different opinion. De Niro laughed, but it wasn't a friendly laugh. It was the kind of laugh that cuts right through someone's false confidence. You think you're asking tough questions? You're sitting here in your comfortable studio, making millions, and you want to act like you're some kind of rebel. Give me a break, Bill. The tension was building fast now. Maher looked like he wanted to steer the conversation somewhere else, but his pride wouldn't let him back down. He leaned back in his chair, trying to look relaxed, but his body language screamed defensive. His shoulders were tense. His jaw was set. At least I'm willing to have conversations that make people uncomfortable, Maher said, gesturing broadly. That's more than most people in Hollywood can say. You all live in this echo chamber, where everyone agrees with each other and pats each other on the back. Nobody challenges anything. Nobody questions the narrative. You want to talk about echo chambers? De Niro's voice was getting louder now, more forceful. You surround yourself with an audience that laughs at everything you say. You bring on guests, and then talk over them. When's the last time you actually listened to someone who disagreed with you without making it into a joke? When's the last time you let someone finish a thought without interrupting them? Maher's face was fully red now. His trademark smirk was gone, replaced by a tight-lipped expression of barely contained anger. I listen all the time. Maybe you're just mad because I'm not kissing your ass, like everyone else does. Maybe you're upset that I'm treating you like a regular person, instead of some untouchable icon. There it is, De Niro said, pointing at Maher. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Someone disagrees with you, and you turn it into an attack. You can't handle an actual conversation. You just want people to sit here and let you perform your little comedy routine. That's all this is to you, isn't it? A performance. The audience was dead silent now. Some people looked uncomfortable, shifting in their seats, wondering if they should leave, or if this was somehow planned. Others were leaning forward, completely absorbed in the confrontation. This was not what anyone expected when they came to watch a talk show tonight. This was raw, unscripted conflict. Maher tried to laugh it off again, but it came out forced and awkward. Okay, Bob, I think maybe you're taking this a bit too personally. We're just having a discussion here. This is what the show is about, having real conversations, even if they get a little heated. Don't do that, De Niro said sharply, his voice cutting through Maher's attempt at deflection. Don't try to make me look like I'm overreacting, when you're the one who started this by dismissing what I said. You asked me about my film, and when I told you what it meant to me, you mocked it. That's not a discussion, Bill. That's you being an asshole. More gasps from the audience. Someone in the back row let out a nervous giggle. Maher looked genuinely shocked now. He's used to being the one who controls the narrative on his show, the one who gets the last word, the one who decides when the conversation shifts. But De Niro wasn't backing down, and Maher clearly didn't know how to handle it. I wasn't mocking anything, Maher protested, but his voice sounded weak now, defensive. I was offering a different perspective. That's what this show is about. Different perspectives. I present an idea, you present yours, we have a debate. That's good television. No, this show is about your perspective. De Niro corrected him, his tone harsh. Everyone else is just here as a prop for you to bounce your opinions off of. You don't actually care what anyone else thinks. You already know what you're going to say before they even open their mouths. Maher's hands gripped the armrests of his chair. His knuckles were turning white. That's not true. I have intelligent conversations with people all the time. Politicians, scientists, writers. They all come on this show and we have substantive discussions. Intelligent? De Niro let out another harsh laugh. Bill, you interrupt people constantly. You make everything about yourself. Even right now, you can't admit that you were dismissive. You have to defend yourself and make it seem like I'm the problem, like I'm the one who's being unreasonable here. The confrontation had reached a boiling point. Maher looked around, perhaps hoping for support from his crew or audience, but everyone was just watching in stunned silence. The cameras were still rolling, capturing every uncomfortable second. This was unprecedented. Bill Maher, the guy who prides himself on being unflappable, was completely rattled. Listen, Bob, Maher started, trying to use a condescending tone to regain control. Maybe you're having a bad day. Maybe something's bothering you. Maybe you didn't sleep well, but you're being unreasonable here. I think we should take a breath and— Don't tell me I'm being unreasonable, De Niro interrupted, his voice like ice. And don't try to psychoanalyze me like I'm some guest who doesn't know what they're talking about. I've been in this business longer than you've had this show. I know exactly what's happening here. I've seen people like you my entire career. Then enlighten me, Maher said sarcastically, spreading his arms wide. What's happening here, Bob? Please, tell me. Explain it to me like I'm an idiot. De Niro leaned forward, looking Maher directly in the eyes. The intensity was palpable. What's happening is, you invited me on your show to talk about something I care about. And when I tried to have a real conversation, you couldn't help yourself. You had to be clever. You had to get your little digs in, because that's what you do. You tear things down instead of building them up. You mock instead of engage. And honestly, I'm tired of people like you. The word "you" hit like a hammer. Maher opened his mouth to respond, but De Niro wasn't finished. He was on a roll now. Years of frustration with people like Maher pouring out. You know what the real problem is, Bill? You think being cynical makes you smart. You think making fun of people who actually give a damn about something makes you edgy or brave. But it doesn't. It just makes you mean. And small. Really small. The audience didn't know how to react. Some people looked like they wanted to clap but weren't sure if they should. Others just sat there with their mouths open, shocked at what they were witnessing. A few people were recording on their phones, knowing this would be everywhere by morning. Maher's face had gone from red to pale. He looked like he'd been slapped across the face. That's completely unfair, Maher said, and for the first time, he sounded genuinely hurt. His voice cracked slightly. I've dedicated my career to speaking truth to power, to calling out hypocrisy wherever I see it. I've lost jobs over this. I've been canceled, protested against, threatened, all because I'm willing to say what needs to be said. You call out hypocrisy? De Niro shook his head slowly, like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Bill, you are the hypocrisy. You sit up here in your ivory tower, judging everyone else, acting like you're above it all. But when someone challenges you, when someone doesn't play along with your game, you can't handle it. Look at you right now. You're falling apart. Maher tried to compose himself. He straightened his tie, took a breath, and attempted to put on his usual confident mask. But it was too late. Everyone could see through it now. The cracks were showing, and they were massive. I'm not falling apart, Maher insisted, but his voice betrayed him. I just think you're being incredibly disrespectful. I invited you onto my show as a guest. And this is how you treat me? This is how you act? By attacking me personally? Disrespectful? De Niro's voice was sharp as a knife. You want to talk about respect? What about respecting your guests enough to actually hear what they're saying? What about respecting your audience enough to have genuine conversations instead of performing for them? What about respecting the people whose stories you're so quick to dismiss as depressing? I do have genuine conversations. Maher was practically shouting now, his composure completely gone. Every single night, ask anyone who's been on this show. No, you don't, De Niro said calmly, which somehow made it even more devastating. The quiet confidence in his voice made Maher's shouting seem desperate. You have conversations where you already know what you want to say, and everyone else is just there to set you up for your next punchline. That's not genuine, Bill. That's a performance. And it's a tired one. Everyone's seen it 1,000 times. Maher stood up from his chair suddenly, his body language aggressive. The movement was so abrupt it startled some people in the front row. You know what, Bob? Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe you're not the right guest for this show. Maybe you should be on some other show where they'll just let you talk and nobody will challenge you. De Niro stood up too, matching Maher's energy but with much more control. He didn't seem angry, just done. Completely done with the whole situation. Maybe I'm not. Maybe the right guest for this show is someone who'll sit there and take your crap without saying anything back. Someone who'll laugh at your jokes even when they're not funny. Someone who'll let you feel superior. Is that what you want, Bill? That's not what I want, Maher said. But he didn't sound convincing. His voice was weak, uncertain. Yes, it is, De Niro shot back without hesitation. That's exactly what you want. You want people to validate you. You can't handle actual pushback. And the second someone gives it to you, you fold. Just like you're doing right now. Look at yourself. The two men stood there, facing each other across the desk, the tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. The audience was completely frozen, watching this unprecedented moment unfold. Nobody had ever seen Bill Maher so thoroughly dismantled on his own show. Some crew members were standing in the wings, unsure whether they should intervene or just let it play out. I think maybe you should leave, Maher said quietly, trying to salvage some dignity. But there was no dignity left to salvage. Everyone could see he'd been beaten. De Niro let out a short, bitter laugh. You think? Don't worry, Bill. I'm already gone. I was gone the minute you showed me you weren't interested in an actual conversation. Fine, Maher said, his voice cracking slightly. Go ahead. Walk off. That's real mature. Real professional. You know what the sad part is? De Niro said, not moving yet. He wanted Maher to hear this. You could actually be good at this. You're smart. You're quick. You have a platform that millions of people watch. But you waste it on being petty and mean-spirited. You could use your show to actually connect with people, to have real discussions, to bring people together. But instead, you use it to feed your ego, to make yourself feel important. Get off my stage, Maher said, louder now, his composure completely shattered. His voice was shaking with anger and embarrassment. Seriously, just get off my stage. Now. Gladly, De Niro said. He reached up and unclipped the microphone from his jacket. For a moment, it looked like he might just drop it on the floor in a final gesture of contempt. But instead, he placed it carefully on his chair. A final gesture of dignity that Maher clearly lacked in this moment. The contrast was stark. You're making a huge mistake, Maher called after him, his voice desperate now. Walking off my show like this, do you know how this looks? Do you know what people are going to say? De Niro turned back one last time. His face was calm, almost serene. No, Bill. Coming on your show was the mistake. But at least I'm correcting it. That's the difference between us. I can admit when I'm wrong. The words hung in the air like a verdict. Maher had no response. He just stood there, his mouth slightly open, looking utterly defeated. The camera captured every second. As Robert De Niro walked across the stage, his head held high, his stride confident. He didn't storm off in anger. He didn't slam anything or make a scene. He simply walked away with the kind of quiet dignity that made Bill Maher's earlier behavior look even worse by comparison. As De Niro reached the edge of the stage, you could hear Maher trying to recover. "Well, folks, I guess Bob's not a fan of actual debate," he said, attempting a joke, but his voice was shaking badly. "Some people can't handle different opinions. We'll be right back after this." But nobody was buying it. The audience sat in uncomfortable silence as De Niro disappeared backstage. Some people started whispering to each other, their voices rising in a buzz of conversation. Others pulled out their phones, already texting or posting about what they'd just witnessed. A few people were actually leaving their seats, heading for the exits. Bill Maher stood alone on his stage, his face a mixture of anger, embarrassment, and shock. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. The confident host who'd started the show was gone, replaced by someone who'd just been publicly humiliated by one of the most respected figures in Hollywood. The crew scrambled to cut to commercial, but the damage was done. In less than 15 minutes, Bill Maher's carefully constructed image as the unshakable host who could handle any guest, any topic, any situation, had been completely destroyed. And it had been destroyed by someone who simply refused to play his game. As the stage lights dimmed and they cut away, you could see Maher sink back into his chair, his head in his hands. His shoulders were slumped. He looked exhausted, beaten. He knew what had just happened. Everyone knew. Robert De Niro had just exposed everything that was wrong with Bill Maher's approach to hosting, his treatment of guests, and his inflated ego. And he'd done it calmly, directly, and with undeniable truth. This wasn't just a guest walking off a show. This was a masterclass in standing up to someone who'd gotten too comfortable being the bully in the room. And social media was about to explode.